Okay. Perfect. So we'll give everyone a couple minutes who's joining live to hop on. So now that we're on a couple of different channels. And then anyone who's going to be watching this as a replay, hi and welcome. Skip through all of the banter. We'll get to the meat of it. But yeah, so let's wait until the 6:02 mark to start our intros, maybe, just until we get enough people on, and we'll banter for a little bit before that. Honestly, I love doing live streams just for the need to banter.
You like that word?
Come on, like at such random times. My favorite is when celebrities do it, when they're doing like an Instagram live or something like that, and like they don't know how, and they're just like standing there in front of the camera. Reminds me that they're still human.
This is very true. Speaking of banter, I don't know where you guys are. We had snow all day where I am. It's been snowing, so that's been a fun April treat.
Yeah, right. We had some flurries in Salem.
Boston's finally getting good weather, but spring, you can never really tell what the weather is going to be like. It can either be like 65 and beautiful or like 45 and rainy and gray. So, always fun.
On Monday,
my favorite season in Boston is the spring.
One of our coworkers who lives in JP pointed out that Monday would have been the perfect Marathon Monday weather, and made us all kind of sad because we're like, oh wow, it's going to be 2 years without the marathon.
I know, it's so sad.
It is sad. Yeah. So we're
speaking of the marathon. Oh, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, like, we can dive in, but the marathon is much more important.
I was just wondering, like, from your perspective, does the marathon like bring a lot of economic prosperity to the city in the day that it happens usually?
Yeah, I mean, it not only leads, from the actual day of the marathon, but think about like, the whole weekend prior to the whole weekend after. There are hundreds of thousands of people that come to Boston or flee to the region for the marathon. So it is a huge economic boom for our businesses, for just local economy, just in general, and then thinking about tourism and all of that stuff as well. So it's been a huge bummer to have to make those sacrifices of not being able to have the marathon over the last 2 years.
Yeah. I can imagine, there's many things that probably affect the, economic impact in terms of supporting small businesses and cities. I think especially when you have these large events that can no longer happen. I mean, I know that Boston Calling is also canceled. And I know that at some of those things, you also have small businesses showing up in whether it be like tents and serving food or selling their products. It's been unfortunately like a year of lost opportunity. And we're looking forward to talking about what it looks like going forward and how we can change that.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. But I don't think it's unique to Boston, right? Like this is a global pandemic. And so we've seen this happen across the globe, really. And I think what it has forced, at least the city of Boston, to do is think about all of our processes and think about all of the things that we do on a regular basis and try to figure out how we can be innovative and creative to respond to that and to support businesses and the community, during that.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited to get into it. Let's do some quick intros and then just dive into some of our questions. So I'm Isabel. I am the Director of Marketing Communications here at Mainvest. So kind of doing a little bit of everything, working with investors, both new and existing investors on the platform, working with our alumni businesses, really doing any type of external communications. So really exciting time, obviously, with us working with so many small businesses, so many investors across the country. It's keeping us very busy. So I'm super excited for today's discussion, just learning a little bit more about, kind of the optimistic side of things in terms of reopening.
Yeah. I am Lauren. I also work with Isabel at Mainvest, and I work on the content team. So what I do on a daily basis is basically getting stuff like this to everyone out in the world, and sharing, the news that you can support small businesses in your Main Street communities with Mainvest. And, I'm super excited to have this conversation. I think a main staple of our business is that, we're here to support economic growth in places all across the country. So we're really happy to have you here with us today.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. My name is Natalia Urtubey. I'm the Director of Small Business for the Office of Economic Development in the City of Boston. Really excited about this. Sorry, I was looking away. I was trying to find the live stream so that I can share it out with our colleagues as well, so that everyone can see this. Excited to chat about small business and reopening and all the things that we do at the City of Boston.
Awesome.
Awesome. I will send you that link, by the way.
Thank you. That would be awesome.
Awesome. So yeah, to kick things off with the softball question, I think something that we're really eager to hear about is what does reopening look like in Boston? What are the different policies? How did the city go about deciding what those were going to look like? What's going on in Boston?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different tiers and levels to that question. So I'll start by saying that the City of Boston is committed to public health. That has been our number one priority. During this pandemic, we've seen many, many Bostonians lose their lives and loved ones, as well as, folks across the Commonwealth and, in general across the U.S. and the world. And I think the City of Boston has taken a deep responsibility in making sure that our city is doing everything that we can to protect our residents and all of our visitors and the people that have connections to Boston. So I'll start there. I think the second piece that's really important is that we are required to follow the state's guidance. So the Boston can go stricter, but we cannot go. We can go stricter, but we can't go looser. So as Boston has been planning our reopening strategy, it has been directly tied to the state's guidance and the state's reopening guidance. We, as a city, serve on an advisory group with many people from across the Commonwealth who have been helping the state, have been advising the state on how to reopen, and that includes business leaders, health professionals, city officials, etc. I think there have been moments in time where, based on our public health numbers and the state's public health numbers, we've made different decisions in the state. And again, all of it is really deeply rooted in data. And that has been the approach from day one. How do we use data to inform our practices, especially as it pertains to reopening our economy, which obviously creates crowds and people and gathering and things like that, that for this pandemic and this virus can be really problematic and detrimental. So it has been a really, really challenging place to be in, right? Because I think the city of Boston is, and like all cities, I think we're balancing between supporting local economies and, our business communities and the people that can't necessarily just pivot to working from home, and their well-being and their kind of success with, public health, which is number one. Most important thing is that people are surviving, that our hospitals aren't being overrun, by incidents, and that, the inflated numbers of people with COVID using hospital beds that then take away from, accidents or heart attacks or, other public health needs. And so I think COVID has been a little bit about mitigating all of those factors. And the city of Boston has just really taken that seriously and tried to make sure that we're doing everything we can to save lives. You're both muted.
I'm muted. Yes. I was just going to say, like, I can imagine that right now, correct me if I'm wrong, but more than ever, you must be basing a lot of what you're doing off of data. I mean, I'm sure you're taking into account data in every day, even before the pandemic. But I think now for everything that we do, especially in running economies and running cities, data is our biggest helper, and it can also be the biggest hinderer of activity. So it's a careful balance. And, I'm sure that I know that we are very appreciative of all that these cities across the nation are doing right now. You guys are a perfect example of it. And then going off of that, I think, it must be hard, especially in a city. I think small towns have the advantage of lower populations and people spread out, and small businesses in smaller places have the ability to serve people in different ways because of, varying numbers or, staying farther apart. In cities, it probably gets a little more complicated, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. When you have density, when you have commercial corridors, when you have job centers, you're going to have that. And I think, at least in my role, there's so many small businesses that depend on those commercial corridors to be able to thrive. And, what we've seen is that the lack of people, like just everyday people in Boston, has severely impacted those more trafficked, high density commercial core areas for sure.
Yeah, it's been weird. I mean, it's still, I live in a small city in New Hampshire called Portsmouth, and it's just even the decrease in foot traffic at night. I was riding my bike through town at like 7 p.m. and there's like 5 people around. This is usually a city where there's foot traffic. And I've been to Boston in this time, and you're just like, where is everyone? It's a weird world we're living in. And I think transitioning back to, or getting those numbers higher, is a delicate thing.
Yeah.
Getting those numbers lower.
Yes.
Like getting the foot traffic higher. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is what all major cities depend on. I mean, most major cities need people to both create those spaces, right? Those incredible, like, unifying places where you go to hear music, or you go to shop, or you go to pick up your groceries or your dry cleaning. Like, we need that interaction, I think, in cities, whether you're a town or a large city. And I think a city like Boston, that is so interconnected and deeply like neighborhood focused, I think that has actually been one of the saving graces for a lot of our small businesses, is that deep roots and deep connection back to our local residents, the residents, and that local economy as well. So it is a weird world. And I think moving forward, the world is living with COVID, not trying to avoid it or get rid of it, because at this point, like, it is such a deeply ingrained part of our lives. But how do we live with it? How do we ensure that our residents, our highest vulnerable populations, our businesses are all prepared to live with it, right? To prepared to be safe and do their part to keep the greater population safe. And I think at the end of the day, we all have a role to play, whether you're a consumer, business owner, an employer, whatever that might be, you have a role to play. And I think that that's what a lot of our efforts over the last, in particular, the last, I would say maybe 3 to 5, maybe even more months, has really been around sharing what those responsibilities are, and how do we live with this virus, and how do we, move forward.
Yeah. That kind of leads to my next question too. I do want to dig into, when it comes to, this delicate balance of reopening, what do you think are some of the top considerations that both businesses and consumers should be taking into account? I guess starting with business owners, because I know obviously they've had to pivot throughout the pandemic. First thing and it's so funny thinking back now to when, March of last year when everything started shutting down, and really nobody knew what the right thing to do was, or what, different capacity limits were going to mean, or anything like this. And I feel like now we've kind of grown more accustomed, and I think small business owners have too, to the idea that you have to be agile and able to kind of change your business plan and your operating procedures. Over the summer, it was almost day by day, it felt like. Now, as we start to, ideally get to looser restrictions as, numbers allow, what should businesses be paying attention to? How should they prepare?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's multiple tiers to that. And I think it also depends on what industry you're in and kind of what you're doing, because there's really specific guidance for every different type of industry. So if you're a restaurant, you need to be doing this. If you're a retail shop, you need to be doing this. If you're like a large, professional services employer, you need to be doing this. And so I think the best thing to do, if you are unclear about what you as a business owner or you as a industry need to be doing, visit our page at boston.gov/reopening. And all that information is there, as clear as we can make it. And if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. So I'll start that. I think in general, and this is me speaking as an individual and like someone who works in this field, I would say that one of the biggest considerations I think employers and businesses have to take into consideration is their role and responsibility, and to keep up to date with what they're supposed to be doing, and doing the best that you possibly can to be trained or be like knowledgeable of those things, making sure your staff is trained, and making sure that you're doing everything you can to ensure your customers are coming into a safe environment. So I think that's, kind of obvious and silly, but like, are you cleaning your doors and your countertops and things like that? Are you providing PPE for your employees? Are you requiring PPE for your employees and your customers, et cetera? So thinking about those considerations. And then I think giving the space for people to, your employees in general, I think giving them the space to, especially if they're hourly employees, to get COVID tests, to get time off for vaccinations, to, if they're not feeling well, to not have to come in and not have to sacrifice their well-being by coming in if they're not feeling well, right? We want people to stay home even if you tested negative for COVID, but you feel ill, like the best thing you could do is take the day, stay home, take care of yourself. And employers need to be, in my opinion, really supportive of that. And they need to be able to be flexible in those spaces, because it only takes one person, right? It only takes one incident like that. And so I think those are some of the things, and what we've been saying from very beginning, from those summer moments where we were like, what do we do? And every day was a new thing. Our messaging has been, don't open until you're ready to open, right? As a business owner, you get to have a little bit of control there. Obviously if you're within the parameters of businesses that can open, wait until you're ready. Wait until you have all of your ducks in a row. You feel prepared. You feel ready to go. Wait to open until you're ready.
Definitely. I think that's something that, honestly, I think business owners need to hear, and it does sound pretty obvious, but I think there's always this pressure, to either get reopened or to stay closed, or, kind of whatever the community wants. And that's fair, because, communities, especially like we were saying in Boston, are the reason a lot of these small businesses have been able to, stay alive this whole time. But I think business owners can take a little bit more of a breath sometimes in deciding what the best way to go about things are. And so it's important to remember, like, even if it's going to take another week to get everything all ready, like, it's better to take that week and get ready rather than just kind of open up and hope for the best. I think it's very interesting to see how people handle it.
Yeah. And there's, there's a very clear balance too between like the economic pressures of reopening, right? And the public health, pressures of reopening. And I think every business owner is different. Every business is different, and people have to do what's best for them. But reminding folks, we are still in a pandemic. We're still, in it. And every decision any one of us makes is going to impact the overall well-being of our communities. And so I think that that's been kind of Boston's approach of like looking at the numbers, doing everything that we can, and, figuring out the best way to live with the virus.
So,
I think
go ahead, Lauren.
I was just going to say, I think in the grand scheme of things, as a small business owner, it's really important too to like know that you have the control in terms of like what you feel comfortable with. There's a lot of small businesses that I go to that still aren't open for indoor, and that's a personal choice that they're making. And I think it's really important, despite the pressures around, despite what's opening up and what's being allowed, like as a small business owner, you have the power to make the decisions that make you most comfortable.
Yeah, I think that's true for consumers as well. And that's kind of what I wanted to ask about as well. Back in September, we did a survey with Brado Brewhouse over in Brighton, just about consumer sentiment. And, let's say, this was back even before the vaccines were, fully rolled out or anything. Would you go out to eat if everyone is vaccinated? If there weren't any vaccinations, we kind of put all of these different pieces together to see kind of what public sentiment was like. And a lot of people just really were scared, and I think for good reason. And so now that we're actually seeing vaccines in people's arms, we're seeing, depending on where we live, we're seeing numbers look a little bit better, but in other places a little bit worse. I think consumers are so torn just on, what is safe. Maybe, touching a doorknob won't get me sick, but, will eating in a tent versus an outdoor setting get me sick? And how do I go about this? And I think that consumers, some people obviously are taking things perhaps not as seriously as we wish they would. Otherwise, this virus wouldn't have been such a big thing in the first place, but we don't need to get into that. And then I think other people might even end up being cautious, even, years in the future. I know some friends that say that, they're not going to be able to get on an airplane for years to come, just because the idea of being so close to other people is so bothersome to them. So how, from, a city standpoint and like a public communication standpoint, do you get the right information to people to make sure that they're confident in the choices that they're making, but then at the same time, not making irresponsible choices that are going to put other people at risk?
Yeah, I think that's a great question and a great kind of framing, because so much of whether or not, like, we can open all the businesses in Boston, but if consumers aren't ready to go back, like, what is the point of, opening, right? So I think, again, like, this whole thing is about a delicate balance and a delicate dance that we are constantly playing. I think if consumers see that their business owners and their favorite businesses are taking it seriously and doing all the things, I think that they will feel more confident. I think in general, we've seen consumer confidence go up. We've seen people start to travel more. We've seen, and I think that is deeply correlated with vaccination rates and people being able to access their vaccine and start moving forward. But I think I think it'll continue to be a personal choice of how comfortable you are in the coming days or weeks or, months. I think there's also a level of like responsibility that, as a consumer, you also are responsible for participating in this recovery. And that might mean, wearing your face covering all the time, right? When you're in a public space, even if it's annoying or if, like, you can't, it itches your nose or whatever it might be. Like, that discomfort is part of kind of the trade-off for us to be able to go back to what will be the new normal. I think there are other ways too that you can participate in the economy without leaving your house, right? A lot of business owners have pivoted to online shopping, have pivoted to creating opportunities in a virtual space so that you can continue to engage. I know that that has been really true and dramatic for a lot of different industry types. So I guess my recommendation would be, when you're comfortable in, reintegrate yourself into the economy in whatever way makes sense for you, and figure out how you can continue to support your local favorites. And when you allow me to, I will do a shameless plug for an exciting thing that we launched last week in the city of Boston to engage residents in kind of the recovery efforts of COVID-19. But I think as we learn more, and, I would recommend people continue to, listen to the CDC, the Boston Public Health Commission, ask your doctors, like people who are experts in this field have a lot of information. And if you are feeling, uninformed or like you need more support, I guarantee you any of these people can give you information and help you feel more informed. I'm not going to say more comfortable, because that's not the necessarily the role, but rather like make you feel more informed. Anyone in Boston can call 311, and our 311 team will connect you directly with a public health official. So if you have any doubts, any questions, you want to know the numbers, the most recent numbers, you can call 311. Our whole city is dedicated to making sure people feel good, feel comfortable, and feel connected to the resources at hand. Whether you're a business owner or a constituent or a resident or a tourist.
Yeah, thank you for that too. And definitely any plugs for what the city is doing, we are always happy to share.
Okay, so I'm going to take that moment to share that we actually just launched a really cool digital engagement tool called Be Local. So if anybody's watching right now, please look down at your phone, go to your app store and search B-Local, L-O-C-A-L, oh my gosh, L-O-C-A-L, and download that app. So what this app is, it's a digital engagement tool that takes your dollars and rewards you as a shopper, but also gives you the opportunity to earn points at your local businesses. So once you sign up and you set up your user account, you'll attach your credit card or debit card information, and then you can just start spending money. You'll see all the businesses where you can earn points, and where you can redeem your points. So every point that you earn, you get $1 to spend in local businesses. That $1 that gets spent is a discount to you as a user, and is reimbursed to the business by the city of Boston in the form of a grant. And so by doing this, what we're doing is we're saying, go spend at these local businesses, go spend your money. You will get rewarded as a consumer, and the businesses won't have to sacrifice any revenue by participating in these discounts. So it's a really cool offer, and I highly recommend everybody download it and use it. It is a pilot, so it's only around for a few months. And so we need as many people to use it and to download it so that we can test this pilot about whether or not this service works.
That's awesome. And you know how much we love our local economies and empowering consumers to empower businesses. So we'll link to the download link or the App Store link when we reshare this.
That'd be awesome. And Isabel, I think it would be really great too if you can make sure your Mainvest businesses in Boston are listed on the app. So if you are a business owner or your favorite business isn't on the app, I encourage you to invite them to apply. We're still accepting businesses, and they can apply at boston.gov/B-local. And I'll put that in the chat too, so you guys have it.
Yeah, that's so exciting.
Yeah, this is awesome. I think it's, did you guys come up with this program, or do you know if there's anything else like it across the country?
Yeah, so we had been talking about a digital engagement tool for a little while, and we actually were able to put together it's not an RFP, but like a scope. Like we said, okay, here's an RFQ. Here's what we're trying to do. Like, are there businesses out there that can do it? And we actually found an incredible partnership in a company called Colu, COLU. And they actually launched this program in Akron, Ohio, over the summer and had tremendous success. We looked into it. We spoke to Akron. We have had many conversations, and then we're finally able to make it a real thing and put it out there. And so Akron, Ohio, shout out to them, because they were really the first in the city, but we're the first like major American city to do this, which is super exciting. It just like gives us, more ways to support local businesses. I mean, to date, we've given out over $16 million in grants directly to small businesses, for everything from rent to payroll to inventory, fixed debts and things like that. But this is a way in which we can continue to give money to small businesses, but our local economy, our local residents, consumers, they actually get to participate in this recovery. And we know that the pandemic's been hard for everyone. So this is a nice way of kind of hitting lots of birds with one stone.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into our, I think what is our last question, just in terms of networks for small businesses, either across Boston, across the state, or in general. Obviously, we're partial to engaging your community, joining the Mainvest network of businesses, and raising capital, partnering with other businesses. But that's not going to necessarily work for every single business. Where can business owners turn for additional support?
Well, I'm always going to say that the first stop for any Boston-based business or anybody who's trying to start a business in Boston is come to my office. Email smallbizbiz@boston.gov. We have a ton of resources in our shop, but we're also really deeply connected with lots of incredible partners like Mainvest and others who are supporting businesses in different ways. And part of what I say to business owners is, if you don't reach out to us and we don't know you, we can't connect you, right? And part of like being a business owner is about building that community, building that network of consumers, of businesses that you are connected with. And so it's really, I think, important for business owners to play that role and to do that on a regular basis, right? Connect with us. Let us know how you're doing. Even if you don't need anything, we might still be able to help you. If you're opening a new retail shop and you're like, I got this, but we have grants to help you with your signage, for example, or, we can connect you through a technical assistance program to Mainvest if like they don't, or legal or accounting or marketing in other ways. And so part of what we're trying to do as a city is to be more responsive to the needs of businesses. And so we need to know what businesses need, and we respond to what businesses are telling us. And so I think for us, connecting with us directly at smallbiz@boston.gov or going to boston.gov/small-business, both of those can get you connected to my team. I think in addition to that, depending on where you are in Boston or where you are in the region, there are a lot of local organizations, your CDCs, your NDCs, and other like local groups who are focused on business development. If you're a restaurant, like, you should be connected with Commonwealth Kitchen if you're looking to start or understand kind of the business world there, right? If you are looking to get into the trades, like there's a bunch of incredible like organizations. If you're looking to open a retail store, how can we help you connect to a business owner who's done it so you can learn from somebody else? Like there's a lot of ways for you to build your network. And again, I will say this forever, is that every business is different. Every story is different. Every need is different. So there isn't going to be like a silver bullet that's going to help every business at any point in time. So that's why it's really important that you connect with the people behind the scenes so that you can get the services you need.
Right. And I think that's the thing that's so great. It can be so intimidating. Obviously, it's always intimidating to start a business. And especially when you think about, the city of Boston, that's a huge place. I feel like it'd be equally as intimidating if you're opening up in kind of like the middle of nowhere. Who do you go to? Or if you're opening up in, New York City, there are actual people, human beings behind the scene that want to hear your story, that want to help and can connect you with other human beings. Like, it's not just a monolith. It's Natalia, connecting you with other people. And that's why I also love always having you on things like this, just to remind business owners that they're not alone in whatever their pursuit is. You're not alone when you're trying to raise money. You have me and Lauren behind the scenes cracking jokes as you're, getting your Mainvest raise set up. There's always someone who's willing to help, especially, now more than ever when we feel so disconnected. It's such an important reminder that someone can help always, whether like you said, whether you're opening up a new spot and you've done it a million times, or it's your very first kind of step into entrepreneurship, there's always someone who can help.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly poignant at a time like this. At the end of the day, I think communities thrive through creating communities. If you're going to build a business, you need a community to support it, but you also need a community to support you. And there are so many resources across the country and in Boston here. And I think that it's important to know that you can reach out and, whether that be Googling something, whether that be simply reaching out to someone at Mainvest. And, while we do have a business model that helps people raise money, if you reach out to us, we do have a lot of resources that can direct you in the right way to find the help that you need in order to get your feet on the ground running.
And I know that a lot of these resources are to like help you grow or help you get started. But I also think like building a network of support for yourself is about like figuring out how else you can partner. I've seen some really great, very cool partnerships spring up out of those networks of people in Boston. I'll do a shout out to Urban Grape, was one of my favorite, go-to spots. And they had an incredible partnership with a local restaurant. Lots of incredible restaurateurs. And what they did was they did like a dinner and a bottle of wine for pickup during the pandemic on Tuesdays. And you could get that for like 40 or $50 and you'd get dinner for two and a bottle of wine. And like that wouldn't have happened if, the owners of either, establishments just picked up the phone and said, hey, we want to do this. It comes from those partnerships. It comes from innovation. And there are a million other examples of that. I mean, we've seen restaurants pivot to figuring out how to work online or do pop-ups or like give out food and donate food. Like there's just been an incredible amount of innovation that happens because people know each other, because people are interconnected to one another in that way. And I think that is one of the wonderful things about being connected in kind of these ecosystems is about just learning what else you can do. How else can you benefit? How else can your business gain visibility, right? The more you participate in these things, the more people are like, oh yeah, I know her, or I know him, or, I've been there before. I've seen that logo. Like those things are what builds, I think, business, visibility, and also like builds trust, right? They get to know you as a business owner, and I think for us in government, like we're trying to build trust every single day. There's a lot of like, skepticism about why we do what we do. And I think the genuine truth is that we just want to help. Like we want to help people live out their dreams. And part of that is like, we're here and we have to be held accountable and we have to show up and we have to do the things that are important in order for people to feel and like actually see the results of that connection.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it goes without saying, we're excited to see what's in store for the future, and we're excited to continue, helping build these communities. And I'm sure that you guys are too. So, we can all serve as a resource in a time like this. Even if you're just watching this, you're a resource as a person, as someone with connections. So, we're all in this together.
Yeah. Amazing.
Thank you so much for having me on the call today. This is really cool.
Thank you for joining. It's always a pleasure to get to spend time, even though I feel like now it's been probably 2 years since we've actually seen each other in person.
I know, that's so crazy.
I know.
Well,
but
you know, like
always a pleasure.
I keep saying last year, and you find that like, no, last year was not 2019. Last year was a whole year of like blur, right?
Yeah.
So I feel that for sure.
But yeah. Well, thank you again for joining us. And if you are watching this on replay, please go ahead and share it. We'll link out to it. We'll, put different comments and everything to make sure that everyone can find all of their different resources and everything like that. But again, thank you, Natalia. Thank you, Lauren. And thank you, everybody watching, for supporting small businesses.
Awesome. Have a good night, guys.
See ya.
Bye.